Hello and welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's The Business Program. I'm Lori Hammel, actor, author, and SAG-AFTRA member. Now, before we bring our panelists online, I want to let you know that the SAG-AFTRA Foundation is a nonprofit organization that relies entirely on donations to provide emergency assistance and free educational programs to SAG-AFTRA members. This conversation is made possible thanks to the generosity of our supporters. Over the past 2 years, the foundation has given over $7 million in COVID relief to more than 7,500 SAG-AFTRA performers. If you are a SAG-AFTRA performer and need help, please ask. And if you can help, please give. You can find more information in the description of this video. Now, just a reminder, this program today is not meant to serve as a clinical evaluation for any specific individual. We instead would like to present ways of thinking about mental health specific to actors and performers. We'll be putting resources in the chat and in the description of this video when it's published. It is my pleasure to introduce clinical psychologist Dr. Clara Young, mindfulness expert Patrick Mellen, nutritionist Marie Socia, and coach Betsy Capes.
Hi, good to be here.
Great to have you.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
All right. So, and if everyone could please unmute yourselves there with our panel. Marie, if you would unmute yourself as well. Great. Thank you so much. Just want to make sure we can hear everybody. So before we get started, first of all, thank you so much for being here. We are thrilled and delighted to have you. Such a great resource. And thank you, Janani, for putting this all together. She's the one who coordinates everything to make things like this happen through the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. So many thanks to her. So as we get started, what I'd like to do is, Betsy, would you please start us off and just let us know a little bit about you and how you came to helping actors?
Hey, everybody. Thanks, Lori. It's so good to see you. And hi, everyone out there. My name's Betsy Capes. I run a business called Capes Coaching, and we offer career coaching services for all types of creatives, actors included. And my background's actually in casting. Many moons ago, I worked as a casting director, and I was coaching actors on the side. And as I was doing that, I was noticing there was a lot of ambivalence and a lot of fear around the business side of this whole thing. And at the time, I didn't see enough resources really there to help support actors and performers in navigating the industry. And I became really excited about helping actors and artists translate the passion that you all have for your craft to the way that you run your business. So that's what I've been doing for almost 2 decades now. And it's a real pleasure to be here with you all.
Thank you so much. Patrick?
Hi, thanks, Lori. Thanks for having me, and hello, everyone. My name is Patrick Mellen. I run a business called Balance Lab, which is teaching mindfulness through the lens of the Alexander technique. I came to New York right after college to become an actor, and that went successfully. But it also invited, through the Actors Fund, a lot of exploration of what else is there to support a career that cannot always necessarily be the most consistent means of income, if you will. And so really it was through the Actors Fund that I met working with other actors, first as a sort of co-participant in some of the Actors Fund programs that they had, specifically the Creative Entrepreneur Project through their employee program. And through that, I then began volunteering to teach mindfulness at the Actors Fund. And that has, particularly once social distancing began and everything went online, that program went national. And it's been just a joy to learn from other people what it is to be with, even in difficult times, what it is to be with what is happening, because then we just have that more of a rudder. And I feel like the Actors Fund has really been that for me as well. And I thank them for introducing me to so many actors, including the ones I've met through SAG-AFTRA.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Patrick. Clara?
Hi, everybody. I'm Clara Young, and I was actually a broadcast journalist. I started as a print reporter and then even went into talk radio because I was temporarily insane. And then I got really burnt out in that industry, and I was actually diagnosed with depression, clinical depression. And I couldn't get the help that I needed for years. So I decided to study it myself. So I went and got my master's and PhD. And then I was diagnosed with cancer. So psychology really helped me a lot to survive that. And so I specialize in depression, anxiety disorder, using especially alternative and natural methods, because medication actually did not work for me. So I had to find other options. I actually ended up helping actors because after my cancer journey, I realized I'm not going to live forever. So being an actor was one of my old dreams that I kind of buried long time ago. And I thought, well, what the heck, before I kick the bucket, I'll give it another shot. So while I went back to acting, and I realized that actors were struggling with psychological and emotional issues. And I also wanted to teach them how to use psychology to benefit the performance, which is so crucial. So that's how I ended up working with actors and, helping them with rejection and frustration and depression and all the hosts, but also use all these, possible traumatic and negative experiences to really apply that to their acting. So it could have benefits, so nothing is lost in life experience.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Marie?
Yes, hello, everyone. And again, like all of you, very, very blessed to be here. My background is similar to Patrick's, actually. I came to New York to pursue a performing career myself many years ago and saw that through. That was, I had some success there. Actually, I danced with a small modern company. And life just kind of takes you along. I started teaching dance for a while. I got very interested in more of a holistic approach to health. I was a very unsuccessful vegetarian and found that there was no good help for me. So I wanted to get the scoop on how to stay as healthy as I could. Ended up going to NYU, got a master's degree in clinical nutrition. I've been in private practice for over 20 years. One of my first jobs brought me to Manhattan Plaza Health Club here in New York, which is a huge arts community. And I had the privilege to counsel and meet many actors, singers, dancers, musicians. And I just feel like fate sort of brought me back full circle to a community that I really love. And I love sharing good scientific information in the most sensible possible way. So I'm really excited to be here. And I look forward to all your questions and shedding light on areas that we all need some light shined on.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Marie. Well, this May is Mental Health Awareness Month, which is where we are right now in May. And last week there was a panel that was all about just being able to identify some of the really big challenges that actors have as freelancers, and especially right now, right where we are, 2022. And what I really liked about that panel, and everyone, you can watch it. It's not published yet today, but it will be very soon. But with that panel, what I thought was so interesting is that so many of the challenges were highlighted. And what I thought would be great today is if we could come up with some ways to address through tools, strategies, and resources for work-life balance for actors and freelancers. So this is we're so glad to have you here, that this is so helpful to help us all to be able to move forward. So one of the things that was brought up in the panel, in that first panel, was the constant stress of highs and lows. And also in that is disappointment too. And so, Patrick, I was going to throw this to you first, because you talk about mindfulness. And you have experience being an actor yourself. So could you talk about that, about dealing with the stress of having highs and lows and working with disappointment as an actor?
Yeah, thank you. I think that it is, I think that word disappointment is really, really tender for many of us who had our heart set on something coming through and then it doesn't. So what does that feel like when it is a low? And then what does it feel like when it is a high, when it goes a different way and it's like, here's a dream, fulfilled. And I think the mindfulness is asking us, or in my experience, mindfulness is asking us to work with what is actually here. Because I think a lot of the time we may or may not have developed a habit to just push away what we don't like, or to grab onto what we do like. And what that sort of sets up is a pattern where nothing is necessarily workable. So if we push something off the table, we're not really accepting it. And if we grab too tightly to something, we're also not allowing it to change into something more or less. And so what is it to accept things the way they are? I understand that that's easy to say and somewhat hard to do, but I think that mindfulness is one of the training in mindfulness is something that sort of approaches how we can treat the highs and lows as yet another sort of step in the direction, because there's always more right with us than there is wrong regarding of how the lows are coming out, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Really, really helpful. Marie, I know that you deal a lot with nutrition, and I'm wondering, could you address how you use food to keep you productive, or how one might use food to keep yourself productive and mentally alert? Because that is definitely something that people are at home. We're at home a lot. We're doing a lot of self-tapes, a lot of self-recording. The refrigerator is very close by, to our workstations because we're not out in the city running around as we were before. So anyway, that kind of adds a new twist to things. But could you just talk a little bit about that, about mental alertness and using food to start your day and to help use food to keep you productive throughout the day?
Yes, Lori, I'm so glad you asked. It's really, really an important concept. And I work with dancers quite a bit, and this is always a big issue. I think that for just coming from an acting and performing background, all of you are very process oriented. So I know that you're very adept at setting a schedule, et cetera, but think of your body as a machine, if you will. The gasoline that runs our machine comes from food, and primarily your carbohydrates, your proteins, and fat. So without getting too technical, we need calories to keep us going physically and mentally. So it is important to have consistent intake. I know that there are many popular fads out there that tell us we should be eating during a certain time. Not necessarily true. The brain and nervous system need a constant influx of blood sugar, which is going to be produced by your great carbohydrate foods, all your whole grains, your fruits, your vegetables, et cetera. Those types of foods, keeping your diet healthy, actually helps to keep your gut really healthy. And the gut feeds the brain and helps us make neurotransmitters such as serotonin, which gives you a feeling of calm. It will produce dopamine, your protein foods, your meats, fish, beans, etc., give you that dopamine that gives you that mental focus. So, and then your fats also create endorphins that make you feel good, that bring the mood up. So really, I'm probably going to sound like your mother, but you need to eat a little bit of everything consistently through the day. And there's a reason why it's called breakfast. You are breaking a fast. So you need to get that blood sugar up, get those nutrients in, and then as best you can, as Patrick mentioned, be mindful about how we're eating as well. We're all in front of our screens. We're all on social media. It's so easy to sit in front of the screen and eat your lunch And all of a sudden you look down at your plate, it's gone, and you don't even know that you ate anything, and you certainly don't feel full or satisfied, which will only make you go into the kitchen around the corner and get more food. So it's kind of a bad cycle. If we can all just slow down, know that we are entitled to a little personal time away from the screen, make your meals enjoyable, and again, just make the commitment to keep that energy, that food going in through the day in however long a period you can go for. Generally 3 to 4 hours, you're ready for something. So be mindful about what your day is going to be. Even if you want to put it down in a book, make a little schedule for yourself to eat, and it'll go a long way to keeping you productive, and certainly keeping your mood stable as well.
That's so great. Thank you for those suggestions. And again, like Patrick was saying about mindfulness, and mindfulness about stress, mindfulness about the food that we're taking in, and how we are fueling to go through our days. Wonderful. Thank you. Dr. Clara, I was wondering, rejection, feeling like rejection is a rejection of you, as opposed to that you're not right for a part, and recurring rejection. Could you talk about that and how actors can deal with that feeling that comes up when you don't get what you hope for when you put the time and energy into your auditions?
Yeah, rejection, I think for actors is probably like one of the top obstacles and issues. And I was actually talking to someone about that myself. I think we can all relate to, there was a role that I really wanted it, and I thought I was perfect for it. And you came this close, and it was just you and another actor. And the only reason I didn't get that role because that other actor had one more credit than I did. So I was thinking I'm pretty good with dealing with rejection because I process myself and I have tools and whatever, but it's a challenging one. But I think, and it's something that I recommend actors to practice ongoingly. So you have tools that you can apply, resources, work on your self-esteem, be aware that it isn't personal. A friend of mine that I have a support system of other actors, and we always kind of help each other, saying that it wasn't personal. There's so much now with self-tape, there's so much luck involved. When we did auditions live, you can communicate with the casting director and say, do you want me to try it this way or that way? But you have so little information when you get the audition, and then you send it off the best you can and hope for the best. And then when it doesn't happen, people with low self-esteem might take it personally. So you have to kind of learn to detach that. And if it does become something very personal, and it just seems to, there's, some roles that just seems to stick with you, the rejection more than other times, then I have my tools. I have my support system. I leave the environment that's negative and go somewhere else. So there's a couple of things that you need to balance in terms of tool to deal with rejection. But I also suggest that you work on it, whether you're rejected or not, every day. So it's not something, I have to deal with it when I don't get the role, but it's just something, work on yourself, eat right, be mindful, meditate, exercise, build your self-confidence, and focus on the good things that are happening in your life. The things that you got. We always tend to focus on, you can get 100 roles and one rejection, and everyone would be like, why didn't I get that one thing? And then you get obsessed, and then you're basically going to spiral down. So, it should be something that you should work on, educate yourself to get some tools, build a support system, and continue to, really praise yourself and to work on yourself, and not to take it personally. And then learn how to detach it so that you can return to the other aspects of your life and balance that and keep going.
Great. Thank you. Betsy, can you talk about goals and how they help to focus an actor to move forward whether you're in between jobs, or even if a job is ending?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the trickiest things about being an actor, being an artist, being in this business is there's no one way to do any of it. And that can be overwhelming. We all know it's not a 9 to 5 situation where you go to the same place, you do the same thing every day. It's really up to you to figure out your own systems and ways of working that work for your brain, and that everything that everyone else is saying here in terms of making sure you're nourished and that you're taking care of yourself, all of that. Goals help give us a sense of control. And I don't mean to say that when you set a goal, you have control over ensuring that that goal happens. I actually don't believe that. I think goals help us focus, and they help us figure out where do I really want to be? And it's easy to set goals that are just what everybody else has or wants. But the way that we like to approach goal setting is incredibly individual and personalized, as I'm sure everyone else on this panel does when they're working one-on-one too. It's about really figuring out where you want to be, and mapping out first just what do I want before worrying about how you're going to get there. I think it's easy to worry about the how before you even clarify the what. So we take a lot of extra time to help you figure out, what do I actually want? And it might be overwhelming to think big, so go small. What do I want for the next month?
Mhm.
Where do I want to be a month from now? What would be progress from where I am now? And where you do get to create a sense of control is in the planning for going after that goal, and the actions that you can take that you have some control over. Because I think in this industry, it's just so easy to feel like, well, I want to get that role, but I don't get to control it. I don't get to, I can't cast myself. Well, that's true, but there's a lot you can do to set yourself up to go for it. And so I think the mindset piece of making sure that you really can see what's in your control as you make a plan for going after your goals can help create the confidence and the self-esteem to really stay the course.
Fabulous. Thanks so much, Betsy. So something that has definitely been a hot topic during these last 2 years has been isolation and loneliness. I would love to hear what you might have to say about combating that, about this time that we're in right now, where people are sort of tentatively saying, are things okay to get back together with people and this kind of thing. But because of the toll that it can take on a human being, regardless of whether you're an actor, a freelancer, but could you address that? And is there something, say, for instance, what you work with the people that you see that you've noticed has been helpful? And Patrick, would you like to start with that?
Sure. And again, just what a tender question. The isolation and what I've named as sort of this disconnection between our networks, between our families at times. It's been a season of loss, not only personally, but professionally as well. And I think what I have seen, not necessarily to fix, but to work with, is to almost like what Dr. Clara was saying, that it's a practice of working each day to connect with. And perhaps it's not connecting with another person, but it's just connecting with the self. Taking a moment while you're brushing your teeth just to say, I am actually brushing my teeth. And like maybe switch hands. Something that says like, this is a new experience. I'm connecting to this moment because connecting to the self, because oftentimes we're sort of, okay, I'm on hold until, like I've disconnected from myself until, and what is it to connect into the self in this very moment? Because then you have a ground to stand on to connect to other people in a way that's going to show them that you are there not only for yourself, but for them as well.
So nice. Thank you. That's really lovely. Would someone else like to talk about that, about their experience with working with others around loneliness and isolation that we've been in?
I'll pitch in. I think isolation and loneliness is such a huge topic in general. Even before the pandemic, people have been struggling with that. And I think for me, during the pandemic, I decided to seek opportunity actually in a different way that you normally would not have. So for example, isolation. I can't see as many people as I want to or be connected. Well, but then I have an opportunity to get to know myself, to learn more about myself, my weaknesses, my strength. How can I be comfortable with being alone in my skin? Because I know that if I'm comfortable with myself and I'm confident, that's going to benefit the connection with other people. And then, it's a good time to reassess too. And I think there's kind of a taboo, like, oh, it's so bad to be isolated and loneliness is just a bad thing. But, question yourself, why don't you feel comfortable being by yourself? Not all the time, but really that's something that you should establish for the rest of your life, because you don't know no one can stay with you 24/7 for the rest of your life, even if they want to. I think we're all old enough to know that life throws all kinds of surprises. So I really need to empower myself and be comfortable with myself. And in return, I will be more open, bigger, be able to give comfortably, be strong, So I kind of see it as an opportunity, and to kind of question yourself, to really get to know yourself and look at both your weaknesses as well as your strength. Like why am I have a friend, when she goes home to an apartment and she's so uncomfortable being alone, she turns on the TV, the radio, the internet, all of that stuff. And she looks for people in all the wrong places and gets her into trouble. So I kind of helped her assess, why are you not so comfortable with yourself? What is that about? Because that's really important, and that's going to affect every aspect of your life. So I like to, think of every negative situation as a potential opportunity to find the good, and maybe look at things in a way that you've never imagined, because we're all creative. So why not challenge yourself? Something beautiful can come out of this very dark and ugly time.
Thank you. Marie?
Lori, yeah, I'm just listening to everyone. One of the things that's really helped me during the pandemic is just being out in nature. I closed up my shop in New York City, so I'm out in New Jersey. So I have a few more trees than I did in the city. But even if one feels alone, somehow when you're out amongst the trees, the birds, the stream, whatever that outdoor environment, I know it's helped me put myself in perspective as being in this whole world. And it's brought a lot of peace and serenity, and it's kind of cleared my head a little bit. And I've also found that I'm reaching out more. I would encourage everyone to, we're all tired of being on Zoom and tired of being on FaceTime. However, make regular appointments to talk to your friends. I've reconnected with some childhood friends where pre-COVID, we spoke maybe once a year, and now during COVID and post-COVID, we're trying to speak at least once a month. And I look really forward to it. And these are the people who know me. And I think that that's really, really important. The acting world and the dance world, it can be a little anonymous when you're 1 in 300 auditioning for a role. You can kind of feel like you're disappearing a little bit. But when you start connecting to the people who knew you when, or have seen you grow and have been part of your life, it just reaffirms who you are. And that's really, really important to feel that deep love. And everyone deserves it. So I would that's been very helpful for me, and perhaps it might be helpful for some people as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Betsy, if you have something you'd like to offer about that, that would be great. Otherwise, I have another situation I'd like to talk to you about.
Yeah,
Do you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, just one thing that popped up as I was listening to everyone else speak is just to really consider, it's making me think about the habits that we have, engaged in. And I think an actor's life with auditioning and being out and about and sort of in the rhythm of the habit, it is isolating to all of a sudden be doing self-tapes. And so I think the idea of like, what new habits can you create? I was working with an actor and we set up a whole new way for him to do a self-tape that mimicked got as close as we could to being in the room. And of course, you can't make it exactly like that, but he would get on the train and he would go and put on his backpack. He would do all the things technically he didn't have to do, but then he'd come back home and the place with his wife turned the place around and made it look a little different, like a different room. And we got creative, and it really did help him just get a little bit closer, to that feeling he had where he was in a new room with people. And I think it requires a lot of creativity. But again, like Dr. Clara was saying, like, yes, you've got it. You all have that inside of you. So see what you can do with it.
That's great. The question I wanted to start, another topic that came up last week was comparing yourself to others, and social media is that's the place to do it, So Betsy, can you start us off with some ideas around that? Like really being able to own who you are and what you're bringing, and not to get caught up in that, the scrutiny that we have and the comparison that we have when we're looking at something like social media.
Absolutely. I mean, this is just so, it's huge. And like Patrick, it's also tender. I think it's very tender. I think this is even for the, here's what I think. We have to understand our own relationship to these social media tools and what they're bringing up. And this is really a space for doing the work, Patrick, with mindfulness that I'm hearing, that the more you can understand what's coming up for you. I like to work with actors around like, what are the stories that I'm telling myself when I'm reading someone else's feed? Like what is this comparing? Not just the general comparing, but what am I actually saying and making it mean about me? And is that actually true? And you have to answer that yes or no. Do you have facts? Do you have can we prove it? Is it something that can be proven, the story you're telling yourself? Usually no. Usually it's not a proven fact. And then how do we shift our mindset so that we can tell ourselves a different story? And sometimes it is creating boundaries. A lot of times figuring out, okay, I've worked with a lot of people on the phone, sort of slowly making its way away from your bedside to across the room and eventually downstairs. Like there's a lot of, exposure work around that where you can begin to distance yourself from the thing that is feeling like it has this hold over you and taking away your power. I think social media can be a wonderful tool if you have the ability to really understand your relationship to it and set boundaries that will support you with it. So that's the beginning, I would say, for me of what to say.
Thank you. Marie, I would like to ask you, because I know that you are working a lot with the physicality of actors, how sleep can play a role in all of this as far as taking care of yourself.
Sleep is it's so critical. They say that in order to be fully productive, we need somewhere between 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. So I'm sure eyeballs are popping open as it's very difficult to fall asleep these days. I know that there have been studies done on sleep during COVID. People can fall asleep easily, but then wake up. So our sleep patterns and the circadian rhythms have all been challenged. But it's really great to think about some sleep hygiene. And by that, I mean the following. I mentioned before, eating consistently through the day to keep up a constant flow of energy and mental focus. But certainly you do want to not wait all day to eat and then eat all of your allowed calories at 9 o'clock and then try to go to bed by 10. So if you can give your digestive system a few hours to process food before you get into bed, that's also really good. Speaking of social media, unplug an hour or hour and a half before your head hits the pillow, so that you're not just in that scroll and involved in what someone is saying. So you want to give yourself some time to kind of have the thoughts quiet down. If something is bothering you, if you can't let go of that audition, or you can't let go of that feeling, or whatever it is you're dealing with at the moment, I would say write down the thought. Once it's out of your head, put it on some paper, put it by the bedstand. It'll be there for you in the morning, but just get it out of your head. Begin to meditate, set a nice routine up before you go to bed, whether it's taking a hot shower, putting on comfy PJs, doing your stretches, reading something inspirational to kind of put yourself in that mode, and keep the room that you sleep in a little on the cooler side so that you can really relax, and allow yourself rest. There's no way you can do what you need to do the next day without adequate sleep, and you will make horrible food choices. It's just, you're going to be exhausted. You're going to go for the sugar and that quick elevation. So it sets up a bad pattern. So sleep is really the linchpin of everything. Certainly if you're a dancer or active in your roles, you do want to be rested enough to prevent injuries and just to keep yourself safe as well. So just a few things that I've found useful, and I hope you guys do too as well.
Thank you so much, Marie. I'm going to start asking some of the questions that are coming in from our viewers today. Thank you, everyone. Knowing that those that are here with us today watching this wonderful panel, that you can put your questions into the chat. And if you'd like to actually submit your question anonymously, we also have a way for you to do that through the chat. You'll see it. There's a Google document that you can put your question in. So here is the first question that comes up from someone who's watching today and is asking anonymously. What can you do to motivate yourself? Lately, I'm having issues with trying to motivate myself to do an audition when I get one. I get overwhelmed with the technical aspects of self-taping when you have to do it by yourself. It's stressful and I feel overwhelmed, and then just psych myself out of doing the audition. And then I can't focus on working on the scene for the audition. Would someone like to tackle that one?
Well, I'll tackle it. I mean, I've been there. It seems like it's very often, it's really quite challenging. I mean, some auditions are, as you all know, seem to be easier than others, but for some reason, maybe because of the environment that we're in, I have trouble motivating myself too. And I have to do self-therapy and all kinds of stuff to get myself. But I think one of the things that helped me is when I'm in that situation and I start to obsess and I'm getting further and further into my head, is I physically get myself out of that. I think it's always a combination of things that's working for our benefit, but physically, change your environment, go for a walk, or, go to up the roof, go down the hallway, whatever is available to you, call someone that you trust, and what I do is often, and I may be insane, but what I do often is I just take 5 minutes to laugh. I do that every day. I do that, as a matter of fact, to tailgate on the sleep issue with everything that Marie mentioned that I do. But before, starting my day and ending my day, I do two things. That's meditation for 5 minutes, and then I laugh for 5 minutes. I mean, studies have shown just 5 minutes alone a day will do wonders for our body and mind. So to motivate yourself, physically remove yourself into a different or a positive environment. Try connecting with somebody who's supportive. Focus on something that's fun, something that's not as heavy maybe, but something that's just light, make light of it, like laughing, see a sitcom or whatever works for you, take your dog out to the beach or something. And then your brain and everything kind of gets refreshed. So you're not like obsessing, because, once you start obsessing, then, you're just going to go deeper and deeper, and it'll be hard for you to get out. So anyway, I hope that helps.
Excellent. Patrick, you wanted to?
Well, just to sort of jump in, it reminds me of how Betsy was talking about goals. And I think just thinking about the perspective of the goal is to audition, but I think the goal to get the job also gets really in the way. And so what is it when there is the audition and the audition itself feels overwhelming, to, just like Dr. Clara said, like to geographically relocate yourself, but also mentally relocate yourself to get that new perspective of like, I'm auditioning. And I think that question, even at the end of that question, said to work on the scene. And that's really what is happening. You're working on a scene. And one of my teachers said, whenever you're doing something for the first time, and this might be anathema to us as performing artists, but give it a solid 60% and see what happens. Because once you give it that 60%, you can say, oh, and here's my entry into this situation. And here I could, I can let it be as it is, because, oh, my 60% actually lands where I thought it might, where I want this self-tape to land. And if not, then you have other choices to make. You can have other intentions, other goals.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
And somebody mentioned singing and dancing. That's always a good thing too. 2-3 minutes. That's all it takes. Really.
That would also add.
Yes.
Yeah. And I would add to in order to take the pressure off, because I heard in that question, overwhelm was mentioned a number of times, and that can just grow and grow and grow. I sometimes tell you don't have to do it. You don't have to do this. And why bother if you're not in the right headspace, if you're not feeling it, it's really okay. Nobody is forcing you at the end of the day. So that can sometimes be a way back to, well, I'll say, if you actually want to do this scene, do it. If you don't, oh my gosh, what if you didn't? That's crazy, but it might actually help you take your power back over, you can do whatever you want here. So I think the key is to really be kind and compassionate to yourself in those situations, and whatever can decrease that overwhelm, even if it means, you know what, I'm actually not going to do the self-tape. I'm going to go, hang out with a friend today.
That's so great. And it harkens back a little bit to about, things that are in our control that you talked about earlier, Betsy. This sounds like it's back to choice. And Patrick, it seems like also it's like coming back to, where am I? What is really happening right now? So I so appreciate all of these different aspects, because as actors, we have things come up that it might not be today, but maybe next week I'm going to feel exactly that way, because everything, changes and our situations change all the time. I have another question here. This one is from Nicole, and she asks, for me, the balance is trying to find in between entertainment, parenting, work, and other life goals. I sometimes feel like the world is too loud and like I'm drowning between all the responsibilities plus goals.
Can I speak to that? I have a toddler and a 9-year-old. I hear you, Nicole. And the world is too loud, I think, anyway. I think there's I don't think that we're meant to be consuming as much as we are, right now in this current moment today. And I'm frightened of it continuing, frankly. I think it's really, we have to find our own rhythm with managing it, which is why I'm so glad there are all these resources here in terms of mindfulness and really looking at how can I use food to help me sustain myself. And, with anxiety, everything, it's a really hard thing with parenting and managing, running, being responsible for others. I think taking care of others can really, help us feel like we're doing everything for everyone but ourselves. And so I like to use the visual of a target and really looking at, instead of the center, the bullseye being everyone else, like putting yourself there. And I'm not talking about self-care as much. I think that word can be overused, but whatever you need to get back to you, making that the number one priority, Nicole, because the truth is, I'll say this as a mom, I'm not going to neglect my children. In fact, they're getting so much that I'm losing myself most of the time. So I have to really put forward, what do I need? What are my 30 minutes today? And for me, it's getting outside, like Marie was talking about, and being in nature and getting that walk in, especially if I don't think I have time for it, Nicole. That's when I really need it. And so even if it's 10 minutes, today I only got 10 minutes because it was a busy one, but I kept to that 10 minutes and it was enough for today. So encouraging you to look at what your bullseye needs to be so that you can take care of everyone else.
Excellent.
Lori, I just wanted to chime in also. Yes, during this stressful time, and especially if you're a parent or a caretaker, your diet is not going to be perfect. So don't stress out about that either. You just do the best that you can. Food prices have gone up insanely. So it's a big chunk of our budgets, and that can be stressful. But certainly if you have kids or what have you, there are very, very healthy choices. Get some convenience foods. Don't be afraid of some frozen foods. Frozen foods are actually quite nutritionally sound. Put them in your freezer, take them out when you need them. That's going to help with some time management. So again, just do the best you can. It's not going to be, don't be too rigid with yourselves. There's a little wiggle room in there for everyone. So I just wanted to pop that in.
Thank you. I have another question. This comes from Anonymous. I feel overwhelmed when I get auditions because I need to ask my friends for help to be a reader. I know I should be grateful for the auditions. Is it a good idea to pay your friends to help with self-tapes?
Okay, I have to say something. Well, this is just my personal opinion, I guess. It's a rule. I went down this path before. I had all kinds of experience with readers. I paid professionals. I had friends, and my dad, everybody was a reader. And I would say it's never a good idea to mix money with friends. I think, if they feel comfortable doing it and if they're available. But I have a combination of resources for my readers. So they could be former acting teacher, classmates, cousins. My last resort is my dad, but so that I don't, it's not just one person, but, and then they have different schedules. Some people are available on weekends or nights or whatever, so that I don't stress out if one person can't be a reader. But I generally don't like to, mix money with friends. I think it's okay. And it has been okay. I paid like my acting coach or professional actors to be my readers, but we don't have any, social or personal relationship outside of that. And that's the way I like it, because it's otherwise it just gets messy And the last thing you need is another messy situation in your life. So that's
Mhm.
my 2 cents.
Great. Thank you. Patrick?
I think also the question sort of points at the maybe shyness for feeling a little bit vulnerable and asking for a favor. And what is it perhaps to offer to read as much as you're asking to read? And sort of, I wonder what that shift feels like inside, because I think that there's a lot to, like, when we give, we receive, and it doesn't need to be transactional. I'll read for you if you read for me. It's just like reading is fundamental in many ways. So I think perhaps offering as much as you're asking could affect that situation as well.
Thank you. The other thing I'd like to say is that I know that there are services that you can pay for to have readers. So that I'm not going to mention them by name right now, but you can definitely look them up on the internet. And there are places that you can get a reader and pay if that feels more comfortable to you. Something that came up last in the first panel was about this idea of this intense amount of work in prepping for an audition, and all of that time and energy that you put in doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be a paycheck connected to it. Does anyone want to talk about that? Because you don't want to feel as though everything you're doing is going out into the ethers and never to be seen again and never to come back into your bank account. So just balancing this idea of the immense amount of energy that all actors are putting out right now in order to be competitive, to be seen for the roles, and then the feedback or zero feedback that we're getting, and perhaps the stories we might tell ourselves about that, getting nothing back, is in terms of feedback.
I was just thinking about that today. I had 2 auditions, and one of them was it was just a confusing, ridiculous, role. And after I did it, I was just, I was thinking again, and this happens. I mean, it's okay to feel this way, by the way. It's not, it's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's absolutely normal, or confused or angry. It's okay to feel that way. But I was just thinking, I spent like 5 hours for like a 2-minute audition, and I didn't make any money. But then I do that to vent and get it out of my system. So it's okay to do that once in a while. But then then I have to kind of do my self-talk, and I say, you know what, it's not going to come back in terms of money, but there are other benefits to it. Like, I realize my acting has actually improved a lot through self-tapes. I really have. I look at those tapes, and I study them. I share with other people, and I have improved. And I think that each time I get better, and in the long run, I think that the benefits will come back, threefold, not in terms of money, but in other ways. And I have to remind myself, hey, this is the business. If I'm like counting money and I don't have expecting paycheck, then I don't belong in this business. So this is just the way it is. So I have to be cool with it, right? So then I go and have a chocolate cake. Always make me happy.
Anyone else want to talk about this? Betsy, it looks like you had something to say about it.
I do want to say something about that last piece of and not getting any feedback, because I see that a lot. It can be so frustrating. I mean, this was going on before self-tapes, when you still would go in and have the audition and not really know what happened. I'm so far away from my casting director self, but I will say something about that it's not yours to know, what's happening in the other room. That's their job. You did your job. And so again, I'm coming back to having some type of process to kind of put you back in the driver's seat of your career. And right after an audition or an important interview or a meeting, I like to ask just a series of I don't know, it's 4 or 5 questions before you spin off into that negative self-talk. Right now at this moment, I'm so proud of myself give yourself a pat on the back for something. I'm so glad that I did blank. I wish I had. Okay, we'll give you a moment for something that you wish had gone differently. I was surprised by blank. And the most valuable thing I learned from this meeting, audition, interview is what, so that you can really have just direct your thinking to a new space to occupy it, so that you're focusing on the possibilities of like what you can do with this new information, because you may never get that feedback. So stop expecting it.
Yeah. And it sounds like, setting up structures so that you can feel as though you have some control over the situation one more time as an artist, as a business person. That sounds really helpful.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask another, just like to put it out there, something that came up again in the first panel was this intense level of scrutiny of self. And part of it can be exacerbated by the fact that we're doing self-tapes. But Marie, I know you've worked a lot with dancers, and I know that is definitely, a big topic there. But I know it also is for all actors, because again, we are our instrument. We are what we are putting out there. Have you found ways that have been helpful for those that you've worked with this issue of self-scrutiny?
It's so pervasive, and it's so damaging, but yet it's so human too. And when speaking to young dancers, it's always good to remember that we are multifaceted. Yes, you may have the greatest gift for dance or acting, but we're multifaceted, and it's so important. And I was thinking as Betsy was speaking, and as Dr. Clara was speaking, to really honor oneself in all of one's strengths. So we often say to dancers, your craft will improve the more you do outside the studio. And I do believe that also translates into the acting sphere as well. So whatever you love, cultivate that. It might be you are the best cook ever. It might be your music is taking off. Perhaps you started painting. Perhaps you are the best mother on the planet. Perhaps you're the best spouse on the planet. Perhaps you're the best friend on the planet. Really honor all the facets of yourself, so that if the audition doesn't go well, or you're not getting that feedback, that is one big part of you, but there's so much else. Go and do the other things that feed you, and it'll all work together. So we try to encourage dancers to do much more out of the studio than actually in, and somehow it helps them bring more of themselves to their roles and to their dance, thereby giving them much more satisfaction and better self-esteem.
And I think we're all looking at this, in the long run. So, that you can transition into being someone who is bringing value, and that your sense of self and your pursuit is able to happen over a long period of time, no matter how it is you decide to express yourself. And of course, everything changes because who we are when we're starting out, wherever you are in your journey, is going to be different as you go along. And especially if you want to stay doing something, whatever your craft is, for a long period of time, there are going to be changes. And just in the same way that the world has changed on the outside, I feel so grateful today to hear all of these wonderful strategies that you all have given us so thoughtfully, and also from your experience of working with so many actors and performers. We are going to have to close pretty quickly here, but I want to thank everyone for the questions that you have submitted. And also, I want to thank everyone here on the panel today just for your thoughtfulness, your consideration. And I am hoping that this video can be watched again and again, and parts that you talked about very specifically can be written down or really taken in, and that it can be a source of a resource for an actor to say, this is how I'm feeling today. I know there was something great that I heard one of these wonderful panelists say, and I'd love to hear that again. I just need to hear it right now. So you've given us so much value today, and we really appreciate your time. So thank you, Patrick, Clara, Marie, and Betsy. And thank you all for being here today. I want to say, on behalf of the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, we thank the panelists for sharing their experience, process, and craft with us. We hope that you take care and that you continue with the good work. And thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, and good luck, everyone.
Good luck. Absolutely.
Bye,
Great
everybody.
glance. Thanks, Lori.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Lori.
Thank you.
Lori.
Mhm.